Hello, hello, wherever you are in the world, galaxy, ethers.
Welcome.
Welcome, welcome. What are we talking about today? Detachment and, or should I say non-attachment,
That's right.
right?
Mhm.
Um, and the idea that we can be part of something, but not attached to the story of it, the outcome of it. Maybe there's more to it. So I'm looking forward to kind of unpacking this topic with you.
Yeah, yeah. Well, and I think too, at least for me, this process of evolving through non-attachment has also had to carry with it this sense of non-judgment as well.
Mm,
Because whether we're physically attached to something, we want to hold on tightly to a relationship or to an item or a situation, um, ultimately that stems from our judgment of that situation or of that person, right?
mm.
And we are so focused on, well, this person is going to make my life better, so I don't want to let them go. But what
Hmm.
if in reality that person is actually slowing you down? And
Yeah.
I kind of have some experience with this.
Mm,
In I've spent a considerable amount of time in relationship with someone who um, has evolved differently than I have. I've
hmm.
evolved down one path, and he kind of hasn't really, blossomed like he could have, or,
Yeah.
gone down the path with me, whatever. And what I've noticed is for many, many years, I kind of romanticized, well, he's this and he's that, and he doesn't do this and he doesn't do that. So, yeah, I got myself a gold mine. And then I started seeing, oh, well, but I really need this, and this isn't working, and this is a struggle. And so, kind of having to first shift my judgment around the situation and
Mm.
then let go of all of it.
Yeah.
It went from putting him onto a pedestal to poop on the floor.
Mm.
I had to find that equilibrium. I had to see it from both sides. That's my nature as a Libra.
Sure.
I had to
Yep.
go up and I had to go down. And then
Uh-huh.
I found my even keel, right?
Okay.
I was able to look at it objectively. Okay, pros and cons. Let's look at them both together without, oh, this is actually a pro or this is actually a con. Just look at the steps, look at the process. And through that, I've noticed too that not only is there a level of non-attachment happening within relationship, but also with my own identity.
Mm.
And that's been kind of mind-blowing and
Mm.
revelatory in good ways, but it's also been challenging.
Sure.
It's almost like facing a death of self to an extent.
Yeah. Yeah. The pros and cons analysis is interesting because, it's a very sort of, linear masculine. It's this and this, but, all of these things are wonderful. And then if we add in the feminine of, okay, where is this? So I see this as a con. Why do I see it as a con? Why do I see it as a pro, as you said? The example of, well, they don't cheat. Okay, that's a con or pro, I mean.
Mhm.
Um, but what does that exactly mean and why is it important?
Yeah.
Um, why is that why I choose something versus choosing something more or different? So um, that analysis is fascinating because it does excavate a lot of threads of, as you said, self-identity. When you start a relationship, you self-identify in one place. Things evolve. You can self-identify elsewhere. Um, Codependent, I think, is the word that's been coming through my head lately.
Yeah.
Um, and codependence is rooted in fear, and the idea that um, latching on gives us security, stability, but for the person who's being latched onto, especially if they're independent. generally, it becomes like, I gotta give me my space. Like, let me do my thing. Um, Especially if the person being attached to is not has gone through a process of like you said, self-identification as well as emergence. This is who I am. I'm learning what I like, learning how I want to operate in the world. um, it can be a challenging balance. um, but the idea of non-judgment to me is fascinating, because if we were to extract all judgment, what does that mean? Like, if we were to extract all judgment from a situation, does that mean we just float through it, never changing, never altering, never growing? Um, or when we say non-judgment, are we talking about comparative judgment?
Mm,
So maybe a clarification there would be good.
yeah. Well, and I agree with you. I think that to an extent, discernment can be judgment.
Hmm.
Um, I think I'm using judgment mostly in kind of a negative context, but I don't necessarily think that judgment is negative.
Mm,
It can be, but like you said, we can't just completely float through absolutely oblivious to all of it, because, if say you're enjoying a nice day at the beach with your family,
mm,
well, are you supposed to not judge that as being a great day?
right,
And then it's just supposed to be just a day? I
right.
feel like that kind of takes away the joy of life.
Mm.
But I think, at least in my experience as a human being, I have a tendency to look at what I deem to be imperfections or deficiencies in people, specifically people. I'm just going to stick with people here.
Mhm.
Situations, I feel like my judgment is a little bit more fluid with situations. I tend to be a bit more judgmental on people. But what I've
Mm.
noticed is that because I am that way, I am more critical of myself.
Yeah,
Or maybe I'm that way because I am more critical of myself. Either way, they probably both kind of inform each other, right?
sure.
But it brings to mind the scripture verse, judge not lest you be judged according to the measure by which you have judged. And that part was always the part that, most of the time it got left out. Oh, judge not lest you be judged. Well, wait a minute. That's not saying that you shouldn't have any judgment at all, because again, discernment is judgment to an extent.
Mhm. Mhm.
But to be able to say, okay, if I judge that person based on X, Y, and Z, then I too will be judging my own self based on the X, Y, and Z, not
Mhm.
someone else judging you. And I think that's another misconception about that particular verse is, oh, well, if I judge other people, then other people are going to judge me. No, honey, you're going to judge yourself.
Mhm.
And what does that do to your self-esteem, to your self-worth? And
Mhm.
how does that negatively impact your mission? How does it cause you to stay in codependent relationships? How does it cause you to stay in cycles of addiction, or, whatever, staying in sameness or staying small instead of, like you said, pushing out and being willing to test ourselves with the things that we might judge as uncomfortable or inconvenient.
Yeah. So let's follow the thread of judgment
Mhm.
through in practice. I'll walk through how I see it. I'm curious to see how you also see it. The so judging something as a challenge. I use something a little bit less challenging, judging the idea that I eat too much sugar for what is best for my body, right? Okay. So I have a choice. I have judged now that I'm consuming too much sugar. There is an attachment path and a non-attachment path. Maybe this is too simplistic, but I'm trying to use a simple example, because if we start to go into relationships and money and all those, it gets far more complex. So, very simple example. So, I have an attachment path that says I have to, I'm going to look for all the reasons why it's okay for me to eat sugar and find the different forms of sugar and the ways I can incorporate it and this, that, and the other thing. I can do a little, and I can attach myself to sugar, but I have to be careful that I don't judge sugar bad if I'm going to do that,
Mhm.
because then I detach myself from sugar is creating illness in my body. Okay. Or you can attach yourself to sugar creates illness in my body.
Thereby manifesting it.
Both can be true.
Yeah.
Either can be true. You're creating manifestation. If you detach from it and say, the occasional consumption of sugar is no big deal, like it's not going to impact me, my body will handle it, I move forward, no big deal, then you've created this sort of non-attachment to the outcome of consuming sugar. So you can park it, like you can get to a point where you make a decision, you park right there. I'm going to park right here. Sugar is the most awful thing on the planet. I can't even come close to it. I don't even dare walk into a donut shop. Like you're going to immediately begin to limit your life, limit your experiences, limit your interactions with other people based on that judgment. And now you've attached yourself to an outcome versus it doesn't matter if I walk into a donut shop, I am not impacted by it. It's no big deal. Can have a donut or not have a donut. I don't really even care. That non-attachment is the freedom mechanism in my mind. That is it is the way that something stops having control over you is by releasing that outcome, the judgment about the outcome. The alternate path, like I said, is I don't, I don't really care. I can attach myself to the outcome or I can not attach myself to the outcome. If you take this to a larger perspective, call it a job. Let's just talk about a job or a position or a business or something like that. If you say, this job must produce these things for me, my happiness, my relationships, my money, my satisfaction, my sense of accomplishment, my identity. You've attached a lot to that job. That job is holding a lot of weight. There will be reasons you will find that it does not satisfy you. And then you'll then judge that job as the problem and not necessarily the fact that you've attached all these things to it. You can also say, I'm going into this job, season, reason, purpose. I'm going to learn what I can. I'm going to enjoy my time. I'll meet some cool people. I'll make some money. Everything's good. When it's ready to end, it'll end. Then it's not this big catastrophic change. It's oh, well, I know it's going to end eventually. It must be something better coming around the bend. To me is the nature of manifestation, is that flow and the trust that's not interfered with attachment and judgment.
And I had a thought. You had mentioned, the idea of choosing to no longer attach to a certain belief.
Mm-hmm.
And I feel like if we have a pattern of regularly attaching ourselves to a belief,
Mm-hmm.
then that begins to attach itself to us.
Mm.
Almost like an egregore, or and it becomes part of our energetic signature, and then we begin to see it validated more and more.
Yeah.
So let's say I attach myself as a woman, I'm unsafe, right? Most women have this, just innate sort of awareness that by and large women are not safe in today's society, right?
Right. Mm-hmm.
And if I attach myself to that enough to the point where it starts to cause me fear and anxiety and worry about it, well, then that energy is now gaining momentum.
Mm-hmm.
And now that experience that I should fear or should worry about is going to draw near to me. And this is not like blame the victim kind of mentality, but this is just an awareness that if we're going to continue to ruminate on something, we can expect to see it show up in our lives. So if we attach ourselves to a belief or to an ideal or to an identity that isn't really aligned with us, it will eventually attach to us and pull us down to its level. And that's kind of where I'm at now, in my previous example, you know, in relationship, is that I have found the point where my soul is ready to move forward in the next step in my path and ascend in that way,
Mm-hmm.
and my partner is not. And I can either continue to stay in the situation and continue to stay in that vibration,
Mm-hmm.
or I can choose something different to attach myself to,
Yeah.
or not. That would be
Mm.
the better option.
Right.
But I could just say, well, I could attach myself to the idea that, oh, well, this is just never going to work. I could attach myself to the idea that, well, if I hope and pray hard enough, it'll work. Either way, something's going to happen,
Mm-hmm.
but it may cause me to stay in that lower vibration and make my decisions from that awareness.
Yeah.
And that's my concern with it.
Mm. Yes. Yeah. Because all decisions are not necessarily made under the context of, ooh, this sounds exciting. Let me go. It becomes, ooh, that sounds exciting. Oh, wait a second. I got to check in with this and I got to check on that and I got to make sure this is okay. And manage the emotional pieces of this element and yada, yada, yada. It becomes, talk about attached, it's conditional.
Yeah, very much so.
Yeah.
Yeah. And
Yeah.
then when it becomes conditional, then we start noticing expectations creeping in.
Mm,
And expectations they're right in line with judgment,
hmm.
because we're expecting something, we're expecting a certain outcome that we've attached ourselves to.
Yeah. I had a really interesting conversation with a lady and was going on about something, and she said, can you allow it to be different? And I said, what do you mean, allow it to be different? She says, it's been, you said it's been this way a long time.
Mhm.
Can you allow it to be different? Or do you always expect it to be that way?
Mm.
And that was a fascinating exploration, I have to tell you.
Mhm.
Um, People might poo-poo the idea that, well, if I let go of the expectation of it, it'll come to me. But you hear reference to it all the time. You hear reference to, like, I stopped looking for someone and, oh, they appeared. Or I stopped looking for a job and the job I'm looking for just showed up. And that goes to the idea in manifestation, we surrender to it. Surrender is probably one of the hardest things for humans to do, especially adult humans. Kids do it easily, right? Adults put all these expectation and rules on it,
Mhm.
right? So if I surrender to the idea that I'm not supposed to work a job, I'm supposed to be an entrepreneur, and I surrender to the idea that this idea has come to me in so many different ways and forms and ideas, and now I'm going to go for it, but that means I got to let go of the paycheck and surrender into where's the funding coming from? And then it goes further. I was working with a client this week, and she said she's uh, she said, I just let God have the bottom line in my business.
Mm.
She said it's just so much easier that way. I thought, well, that's fascinating. Um, because it goes even to me like step further. Like here it is. Like go ahead, take it. Is that hard for people? Yeah, because I was the controller. Like I was gonna make it happen. And I learned that from my parents, and they were successful in their own right, but they struggled so hard and worked themselves to the bone. And they have had a great life. My dad has been officially kind of retired for 30 years, and they still live a very good life. So I'm not saying that what they did was wrong. What I'm saying is that they maybe could have done it with a little more ease and flow.
Mm.
If they hadn't been so about, I'm going to force this to happen because I'm the only one who could make this happen. This is how it's got to happen. I'm going to do it. I'll get it done. And then they would, you know, work 80 hours a week and, strive rather than go, I'm going to attach myself from the outcome. I think this will work out really good. And it does.
And I think too that, again, that is that masculine kind of energy of just force and control and push it through and make it happen. And I know that at least in my own experience, I can see where some people will force, they will
Yeah.
push, they will try to make it work, and it'll break. You
Yeah.
know, it's like trying to shove something in somewhere it just doesn't fit. It's not meant to fit
Right.
there. That's the wrong spot for it. And yet we're
Yes.
shoving until we've broken not only the thing that we're trying to shove it into, but the thing that we were shoving. And
Right.
it doesn't get us anywhere.
Mm-mm.
If anything, I feel like it kind of sets us back,
Yeah.
because now we've got to fix the thing before we can move forward with
Yeah.
it.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas, you know, you mentioned this just kind of like flow with it, and it brought to mind the Taoist concept of wu wei, like this
Mm.
idea of effortless action. To say, oh, I surrender, doesn't mean that you're not doing anything. Surrender in and of itself is an action.
Mm-hmm.
But even in a surrendered state, say for your business's bottom line,
Mm-hmm.
you can still be taking steps and
Mm-hmm.
doing actions that align with your mission and your purpose, that
Yeah.
align with what the divine has placed on your heart. But also, again, you're not attached to the result or the
Yeah.
outcome. And,
Mm-hmm.
I've noticed two things. One thing, if I attach myself to the outcome, it will most certainly go wrong.
Mm.
If I don't attach myself to the outcome, it will most certainly go better than I had expected it to.
Yeah.
It won't be the outcome I was expecting. It will be something much more magnificent and profound every
Mm-hmm.
time.
Yeah.
It's like the universe is
Yeah.
teaching me,
Right.
stop attaching to things.
Right.
But so often we see that and we ignore it.
We do. We do. We had a recent example of it. We were living in one place and wanted to move to another place. We aren't buying a place to live. We were renting because we've got some other things that are, is the universe is pulling together for us. And by the way, I am doing the work. But I'm doing the work as prompted. Like the other day, it's like, create the website. Okay, created the website. Create the LinkedIn page. Great, created the LinkedIn page. But there were a few things like I don't want to sign a 12-month lease because I'm not sure we're going to be in this place 12 months. We don't need a big house. I kind of wanted to keep in this certain range of expense. Um, and I kind of wanted a yard. Like we had property, um, but I wanted a space where I could just go and sit outside and relax and things like that. And we picked our location. We started looking at rentals. We drove here to check things out. Um, and then our realtor called and said, "You're trying to find a place to rent, right?" And I said, "Yeah, I have something for you. I want you to go look at it." Worked out perfectly. She didn't want a 12-month lease because she's gone temporarily, going to be coming back. She was willing to trade some work on the house for rent. So that kept the expenses down. Um, It's a nice space. I have a big, bright, open window, so I can look out at the dogwoods all day if I want to. I can walk to downtown. There's all kinds of, and it gives us a chance to like meet new people and be engaged with things and and connect into the community, etc. And there's so much going on here. I mean, I had no idea when we first decided to move here. I knew there was things going on. I had no idea how much. And I love that. Absolutely love it. So we've been exploring and having fun, but it met and exceeded what we were looking for. Uh, and continues to exceed and continues to delight. We met some wonderful people yesterday. I was talking to a guy who owns a local winery here, and he's basically his great grandparents owned acreage outside of town. And I told him what I was going to do. And he's like, "Oh," he says, "I wish you all the luck in the world. I know you're going to have a wonderful." He said, "Maybe, you know what?" He says, "If I found a property, I'll give you a call." I'm like, okay. And maybe the property we want is going to come through that channel. Maybe some other resource will come through that channel. But it was so gratifying to go, okay, that's what I asked for. I trusted it. We took some effort and some action, and there it is. So very good. Very good stuff.
And that's a very encouraging thing for me because I'm kind of in this space now where it's time to make a decision of
Mm.
what's the next step.
Mhm.
And I keep praying and I'm like, can you please reveal something to me, Mother, Father, God? Like,
Right?
get some clarity because I need to know what the next step is. I can't just leap off the building and not know where I'm going to land. But I keep hearing again and again, like, just leap, just leap. Don't worry about it. You're gonna, me personally, I'm going to overthink it and stress myself out and worry myself to death and try to control it and try to stuff it in a box, and none of it's going to work. None of it's going to work.
See, my guides are saying it's going to happen. Like my guides are saying the decision will be made for you.
Mm.
I suspect by the other person.
Oh, you're talking about me personally?
Hmm. Yeah.
Okay. That
Because
that's
I'm so,
interesting because that's actually what I heard the
yeah.
other day. I was like, huh, really?
Yes. Yeah.
Okay.
Hmm. So, I mean, you're diving in to establish yourself
Mhm.
in the work that you do and supporting your family with the homeschooling and they're growing up and getting, you got one about to step out into the world, I think. So, I know, kind of wild.
I don't think he's ready either, though, so it's okay.
I have to tell, well, that's your oldest. So my oldest was ready. Like he was ready. So he went out in the world and then we had a change in administration and all expenses changed and it drew him back.
Yeah.
And now he's back out again and doing great. Fantastic, wonderful, thriving. Um, the youngest still here, but now out and doing well and like making his way. He had an interesting life lesson yesterday, which was kind of funny. He didn't think it was funny, but
There's
I
that
was like,
judgment.
I was like, yeah, you kind of created this one, dude. But you don't say that. You support them through it, and they come out on the other side, hopefully stronger, more resilient, and able to weather what comes to the other side. Because no matter what, I mean, we can. I see people, that completely detach from society. They go live in the woods. They live off the land. They're like, I don't need to make any money. I don't need to whatever. Or I go into town once a quarter and make a few bucks, buy a few things, go back out into the woods. Um, Fantastic for them, not my path. And so there's where the balance becomes a little more difficult, right? Because I want to be out in this modern world, working with people, having fun, investing in things, doing good things, travel, etc. That requires a certain level of operation. But there's challenging people and situations that come up on a regular basis. So there has to be a detachment from, I need to control this situation or make it be an outcome, make it be something, to in the moment, this is how I'm going to operate. I'm going to go here and I'm going to let this be. I'm going to let it be what it needs to be. If that individual's having trouble, I hope that they have all the support that they need, but not my monkey. Right? Not my circus, not my monkeys. You were talking about women feeling afraid in the world. I think that there are legitimate reasons to see and be aware that there's danger for women. Um, it's the dropping in and camping in the fear that's the challenge versus what is my real situation? And if I need to take measures to feel more safe and protected, there are ways to physically do that. There are ways to mentally, emotionally do that. And in doing so, you then you tend to repel those kinds of potential situations just by the nature of your confidence and your energy. I'm not saying that's an overnight thing. I'm not saying it's immediate. It does take time and work. It's a part of what I do when I work with clients is to help to walk them out of the fear and the anxiety that something's coming after them. And it can come from lots of different places. It can be an ancestral inheritance. It can be an energetic that was inherited from many generations ago. It can come from concurrent lifetimes. It can come from your own childhood experience. It could be something your mother experienced when you were in utero. You don't know anything about that, but the energy signature exists in there. And then we can go in and we can find it, we can extract it, clear it, and then replace that with there's a lot of good in the world. I'm using good from a light perspective. There are a lot of amazing people. There are a lot of incredible situations and experiences. And maybe if your current physical situation is not your safest, best experience, there is a way to pathway out of that. And sometimes it just takes that, you got to hit a certain point and then you step. And then one step becomes two, becomes three, becomes four, becomes five. But that first step is to recognize that your fear comes from inside of you, and that there are people like myself and others, and Jessica does this as well, is to help you extract that fear as an energetic out of your field and then replace it with awareness, discernment, and action.
And I think also, to an extent, the process of detachment is necessary as you walk through that sort of programming of fear. And I say that because a lot of times our beliefs, like you said, they may be ancestral, maybe it's coming from your family, or maybe it's coming from your friend group. So it's not necessarily
Mm,
an ancestral thing, but it's just something that, oh, I've heard that all my life. Well, honey, maybe you just need new friends. Maybe you need a new circle
mm,
because that belief is no longer serving you.
yeah,
And when we realize, oh, I have a lot of unhealthy people in my life that are keeping me rooted in fear, that are keeping me small, that are keeping me worrying, whatever the case may be, that's when you have to kind of make a decision. Am I going to continue to hang around the same people and do the same things and get the same stuff that I've always gotten? Or am I
right.
willing to step out of my comfort zone and be willing to say, look, I love you and I send you off with perfect love and peace, but we are no longer aligned and I need to continue walking my journey in a different way. Because then when
Yeah.
you do that, you open a door for a whole new group of people to flood in. And I'm living testament to that because
Mm,
I did not used to have friends like you, Juliana. I had very low vibe friends. I was the friend that was the kind of backbone for all of the other people who were mentally unstable, who were dealing with
hmm
drug addiction and all of
right.
that. And it gave me validation and purpose to feel like, oh, well, they come to me looking for help. They come to me to guide them. But it kept me small because I
Mm,
was looking for the approval of this little group of people when I really needed to be focused on just being myself, not having to worry about anyone's approval, not being attached to any identity or any outcome, and just doing the darn thing.
right. There's a reference called the power of the echo chamber.
Mm,
Let me start with defining echo chamber. What it means is you are in a space hearing the same thing over and over and over again. That space can be your social media,
mhm.
and the algorithm drives that really hard.
Yes, it does.
Whatever you search for, the algorithm's going to keep giving you and keep validating, and it will over and over and over again. You're hearing the echo of this, whatever it is. Women are unsafe everywhere in the world. Everything that happens, every person that's involved, every person that's on TV, etc., except for the handful of people that someone decided were okay, they're all going to create an unsafe environment for me. And we see extreme experiences of this. You can see extreme reactions to it in various social media forums and in personal, well, in real life. The danger of an echo chamber is that that is either one person's truth or it's a program belief of control.
Mm,
It can be one or both or all, right? Um, if it's a program belief of control, then a person or group is attempting to get you to operate a certain way to their best interest, not yours.
yeah.
You are being used as a pawn, to use a chess term, in the whatever gamer or other objective they've got. The key to getting out of the echo chamber, in my opinion, is first of all, you have to shut down the volume of the echo chamber. Just stop listening to it. If you all you see everywhere is fear and you watch Criminal Minds every day or Law and Order SVU, you are echoing that same fear into your system all the time. So you need to find something else to listen to. I think Wayne Dyer's one of the first, simplest, gentlest places to walk into because Wayne Dyer is as soft and gentle as they come. He's going to teach a new perspective that is expansive, it's supportive, it's nurturing, it's self affirming, it's loving. So some might say, well, if you're in this echo chamber, listen to the other echo chamber and then make a decision in between. I I'm a proponent of pull yourself out of all echo chambers except for your higher self, and that becomes, you got to connect to and tap into your higher self, and then you can hear the voices that you're not your own eventually, and stop listening to the echo chamber, because then when you do hear it, you go, oh, that's program control. I'm not going to listen to that. And I'm not going to listen to that one either, because I've made a decision that for myself means this. And that takes some time to unpack. You've got to clear out the energies of it. You clear out the programming. It can be programming from your parents, your grandparents, your peer group, your school, your job. I had a girlfriend. We were tight. She started working at the public school system, and I watched her drift and drift and drift. And I made one comment about one person who is very contentious, and she's never spoken to me again.
Mm.
That's it.
I've had
We were
several
done.
things like that.
And so for me, that tells me she's in an echo chamber that is controlling and deciding her decision making.
Mhm. Yeah.
Versus, I have a multi-year relationship with this person. I don't agree with what they said, but that doesn't define them. So we'll continue. We'll just maybe make that not a topic of conversation. That's not what happened. And it shocked me for a while. I just didn't understand it. But I see it and I've heard about it a lot on social media. And the more reactive someone is, the deeper they are in the control of the echo chamber,
Mhm.
whatever the echo chamber is. I'm not judging one place, side, or opinion or another. The echo chamber can be many different things.
Yeah.
It can be decisions about whether or not to put a roundabout in a town or not. I saw that one rile up a whole bunch of people. Like, it's just a road. You'll learn how to navigate it. People are freaking out. They're screaming and yelling in the town hall. They're having a fit. I thought, ooh, you are way too invested in this outcome. Like, let yourself go. Trust me, you'll learn how to navigate a roundabout. They were not going to let it go. And that they're then controlled by whatever this fear mechanism is in the back. And in doing so, there's a deep level of unhappiness and further disconnection from self that comes because now you're giving your energy to an outside thing that hasn't, to me, earned your energy,
Yeah.
earned your love or adoration.
And I think too that at least over the last 9 years, we've had this opportunity to observe exactly that and see just how significant and deeply embedded those echo chambers are with
Yeah.
the political climate here in the US.
Sure.
You have left versus right, and it's not quite so black and white. There's a
No.
lot more of nuance there,
Yeah.
but you can see people are either listening to this echo chamber or they're listening to this echo chamber, or there's a third one and they're like, you're all crazy.
There's a few of those people like that here in Tennessee and Kentucky, I got to tell you.
Mhm. Yeah.
They generally have something on their hip and they're like, do not mess with me. I'm coming down from the mountain to get my groceries. I'm going back up.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I've always tried to, I mean, generally I kind of lean more towards conservative beliefs,
Mm.
not in all areas, but in some areas.
Mhm.
And I noticed that my social media feed was starting to just be, this hole that was getting smaller and smaller and smaller. So I would reach out to friends that I knew were adamantly against my opinions
Mm,
just to see what they had to say.
yeah.
Did they change my mind? No. Did I change theirs? No, that wasn't the
Mm.
point. It was just to be able to get their perspectives so that I could understand them.
Well,
And
and
because of that,
yeah, yeah,
no more echo chamber.
right. Yeah. And who better to attempt that but a Libra,
Yeah.
right?
Very true. Very true.
Like I know my side. What's yours look like? Because we're a bit imbalanced.
Mhm.
So yeah, I agree. Detaching from so 2020 rolled around, I started diving into the fight, right? I'm wrestling back and forth and I'm into it and I'm gonna convince people and it was, I mean, the vitriol that was rolling in that time period is mind blowing.
Oh, I know.
And I got to a point where it was consuming me again. It started to take over, and it was everything I talked about and everything I did. And I thought, I'm going back to that person I was. And so literally, I shut it all down. I would look at my feed once a day. I wouldn't respond to anything unless it was like, happy birthday. Right? Or a
Of
friend
course.
would be like, hey, what you got going on this weekend? Oh, let's do a bonfire, But if it was about any of those contentious topics, I didn't respond. I didn't go in there. I didn't say anything. I stopped going to meetings. I stopped getting into the forums that were discussing it because it was so completely unbalanced in the conversation. And it still is at some level. We've brought in some new leadership, and there are those who are convinced that they should have just literally flipped all the switches off. I'm like, hold on a second. Not everyone agrees with you. And so some people have to be gently walked to a different opinion. Others need to be allowed to have their opinion and leave them alone. And others, you're just never gonna, they're not even gonna have this conversation with you. And all of that is okay. Because as we detach from the outcome, we recognize that the purpose of detachment from the outcome is to allow me to have sovereignty and agency over my body and my life. And that is, to me, one of the most important elements. I'm sovereign and have agency over my life. You don't get to tell me what's going on. Now, will I stand up if I feel like someone is threatening that? Yeah, you're going to hear from me. But otherwise, the discussion of do you or don't you, what, it's not for me to tell you what you do.
Mhm.
It's for me to say, this has been my experience. Please consider it. And that's it. And I think too many people are invested in, this goes back to the control element, being the voice that transforms it, right? Changes somebody's mind. And the harder we push, like you said, the more likely it is to break.
Yeah.
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 Mhm.
I had a conversation with my sister when she was just starting out as a new mom, because her and I are vastly different in age. And she's got little ones. And I told her some of the dangers of some of the routine procedures that small children get in their pediatrician's office.
Yeah.
And I I would have this conversation with her because I was so passionate about it, so oh, I'm so angry at this, and I don't want anyone else's child to be hurt by this, and my own children are hurt, and I was hurt, and and I kept kind of hounding on my sister, and finally she's like, "Excuse me, I understand that you love me. I understand where you are with all of this. I do not agree with you. I am going to make the decisions for my children that I need to make." Oh my goodness, I was heartbroken.
Mhm.
Not as a pride or ego kind of thing. No, I was heartbroken because I was like, oh my gosh, now her children, my nieces and nephews, are going to be in harm's way. And that's terrifying to me.
Mhm.
But I
Mhm.
couldn't do anything about it.
Nope.
I had to just say, okay, I respect you. I will continue to pray for you that you have clear guidance and you make the right decisions, and I hope the best. And I
Yeah.
did. I prayed over her and her kids. And one
Mm.
day, I don't know, a couple of years ago, she called me. Her oldest is 5 now, so it's been a few years. But she called me and she says, "Hey, I just want to thank you all those years ago for continually pastoring me about those procedures. I did do them initially, but I started to notice some things that just didn't feel right in my soul. So I started to do the
Mm,
research, and I learned for myself just how dangerous they were. And
yeah.
had you never said anything, I might have never known.
Yeah.
So sometimes we are meant to plant the seed, but we're not necessarily meant to water it and watch it grow and cultivate the harvest. It's not it's not what you're here for.
Yeah.
You might
Agree.
just be the seed planter.
Yes. Sprinkling seeds.
Yeah, and the farmer doesn't hold on to attachment as to, oh, of course, if he plants corn, he expects corn to grow, but does he expect every single one to grow? No, that's why he
Mm-mm.
plants so much.
Mm-mm. And I've been by enough cornfields to see other stuff growing with it. So
Hmm.
yeah. There's a great book that when I first started gardening, it's called Carrots Love Tomatoes, about companion planting.
Yes.
And I did not recognize how important companion planting is and how beneficial it is.
Hmm.
It Carrots and tomatoes are not the same, but they complement each other. And so this idea of getting out of the echo chamber and beginning to ask and explore is that I'm a carrot, you're a tomato. How can we work together? That to me is and so it is the harmonic balance. And then there are things like you should not put, what are the two that you don't put together? I haven't read it in a while. The reason spaghetti is because all of those things go well together and they all harvest at the same time, right? Right?
Oh,
Spaghetti
that's a
sauce,
fun fact.
tomatoes, onions, basil, garlic, they all harvest at the same time. And somebody's like, well, I got all this stuff. Let me make something. Right? But you don't put tomatoes and potatoes together. They will kill each other. You don't plant under a walnut tree because the walnut tree puts out barriers to anything growing around it. And so there are situations and people we're meant to be connected with, and there are some that we aren't. And we don't have judgment about that. We just know.
Mhm.
We just know.
Yeah.
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 And
But
that's
I
okay.
think that's the important part of being able to kind of tap into the energetics and really know yourself and
Yes.
your boundaries and your sense of identity firmly, not what it was programmed to be, like who you genuinely are, so that when you do experience an energy that might be questionable, it's much easier and much faster to be able to discern it and
Yeah.
remove yourself from that situation. Again,
Yeah.
without judgment, but
Right.
with awareness.
Agreed. And I think this is a great point for us to mention the fact that the first 3 weeks of our Firelight Alchemy Circle is about exploring and getting to know and reconnecting with yourself.
Mhm.
And this is an invitation for people to join us in the Firelight Alchemy Circle. All of the links will be below, all of the opportunities to get in there. And if you have any questions at all, we're certainly available. We're both on social media. Um, and it is that exploration, which becomes the adventure, which becomes the non-attachment or a clear judgment, I guess is the word we're looking for, because we still maintain judgment. We just do it with clarity or with the purpose of clarity, I guess is also part of it. Um, Anything else you would like to add in closing?
I think that's everything. I think
Yeah, that was
we
great.
really touched on this. We are going to actually kind of go into this a little bit as we explore the ego in this next series that we'll be doing in
Oh,
Foundations. So we'll be talking about the ego and duality and
yay.
what it means to truly step into that self-awareness that we cultivated in the first 3 sessions, to dig deeper now into this non-judgment of self and others, non-attachment to outcomes, our expectations, and what that means for our ego versus our true self going forward. So I definitely hope
Love
you guys will
that.
come join us there.
Yes, love that. Love that. Well, thank you as always. Wonderful, wonderful conversation.
Likewise.